Well, guys, this is my dear friend Bailey, and now turned business partner and partner in crime with Eyelights Creative, which is sort of the marketing firm, social media management platform that we've been building. And I kind of started almost probably 9 or 10 months ago now, and have been steadily building and slowly figuring out what to do with. And so we have just been talking for a while about this idea that we want to open source the business in some ways and talk about what we're building and what we've been learning through it, how we're doing it. Because it really, I've said this a few times in other places, but what we're doing is not rocket science, even though Bailey has a background in rocket science. And maybe it felt like rocket science to him at the beginning, but to me, it's like, we're finding pretty low effort ways to help people grow on social media and ultimately grow their business. And so, there's a whole story with how I discovered that, and ways that I've been sort of going about that. But yeah, we've just thought it'd be fun to open source it, talk about what we're doing, and also just invite people into the process of trying to build something like this. We're both in our late 20s. We've known each other for 10 years almost. Has it been 10 years, Bailey?
Yeah, probably 9 or 10.
9 or 10 years. And so we've been friends for a long time. And so, yeah, I'll speak for myself. I'm pretty new to the business world. I've been doing freelance for a long time, and I've been, finding ways to make a buck off people for a while. I did wedding photography, wedding videography, playing music. Like, I've sort of been a jack of all trades, master of none for a while, and ultimately started realizing that I sort of had an ear and an eye for social media and how that kind of worked, and have been doing that for myself for a while, and kind of, just in my spare time, like helping out a few other people with their social medias. And so I started to realize that there was some real potential behind like what was going on there. And so anyway, we're sort of mid figuring out how to scale it, how to execute well for the customers that we already do have, and how to maintain friendship and continue to do relationship really well in the midst of that. So that's what we're here to talk about. And we're stoked you're joining us. Whether, I don't know if we're going to be, this is probably going to end up being on like LinkedIn or YouTube or something. I don't know where
live.
Yeah, you're coming to us live somewhere. So we appreciate you guys watching.
Yeah.
Bailey, do you want to just share a little bit from your perspective, your story of entering into this and sort of what brought you to this place of us working together?
Yeah. And dude, very impressive summary of everything in about 3.5 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah, where I'm coming from is really just the last couple months. I've been thinking to myself, I like engineering. This is what I've trained to do. I've went to school. I've done this for a couple of years. But there's just a seed inside of me that always knew like that I was going to try different things, and that I wanted to try different things. Didn't really know what that was. I think community and friendship have just been a big piece of my life the last few years, and have really been like one of the unifying threads of just all the different things that I get into. And so I just knew that somehow I wanted to get involved with community and with like growing a few things like really well. And John and I were talking, like I said, I've been in engineering for 4 years. I went school for that. I think I had this idea that it was going to be super cool. And it's lame and boring so far as my experience. It's very slow. There's some really cool moments. There's some really awesome people working in engineering and in the places that I've worked. Like if you're listening to this and you're like, what the hell? Like, like, no, I've had a ton of fun. But the people have been the highlight of it. And so, I think I just knew that was a priority, and wanted to come alongside somebody, a person I cared about, and help them grow. And so I was talking to John. We were playing some Fortnite, and he was like, yeah, I'm thinking about bringing somebody on or whatever. And the vulnerability, that is a thing that we want to bring to this podcast, and to just like the people who are, out there wanting to listen. And the reality is like neither of us really knew what that was going to look like. I'm about to have a kid and I'm going to quit my job, and it wasn't like we were like, this is how much we'll make, and this is what it will look like, and we'll have this many clients. And no, we're like young, we're figuring it out, and like the reality is like, yeah, if you try to get detailed on me on like exactly how things work for us right now, and like there's a couple things we've got pretty well figured out. There's a lot of other things we don't, and so I think yeah, that's been the journey, is like saying yes to John, like 2 months ago, slowly coming on to help and learn what he does and why he does it and how he does it, and learned a ton. Super grateful for the opportunity, John, like for you just to be an inviter and for us to, yeah, I don't know, go out there, have some fun, mess some things up, pick ourselves back up, get after it. So that's yeah, I would say that's the intro to me and how we ended up here. And yeah, I think the last thing to just sort of re-highlight is that we wanted to just hit record and share this with people, and like share the fact that we don't know exactly what we're doing. And I think you get a lot of content about like, I've done this way, and here's 5 ways you can do this, and blah blah blah. We're not here to offer you the way. Maybe through the journey there's bits and parts you can take, but it's more of like, this is what we went through, and this was the reality of like the very real sides of it. So
Totally.
yeah.
Well, and the other thing too is like, I want to highlight too that it wasn't just like, oh, Bailey's one of my good friends. It makes total sense to just like start paying him to be a part of this marketing thing when he has like no marketing experience. Because the reality is like, I've been in the marketing world for a long time, and I've been in the, doing storytelling through videoing and marketing. And, I've been on marketing teams at a bunch of different tech companies. But at the end of the day, like a lot of my skill gaps are exactly who Bailey is. So like, I am like the opposite of a numbers guy. I am I'm a big idea. I'm a dreamer and a creative, and I don't know if it's left or right brain, but I'm the side that doesn't like math. And yet like, and here is Bailey, like, who is someone that I have a really good established relationship with, but is really someone who is an executor, and is extremely detail oriented, and is in a lot of ways just attuned to a lot of the things that I'm not paying attention to. And so I realized like, and this is what spawned the conversation we literally did have over Fortnite of like me talking about wanting to bring someone in, was me being like, I think I'm sitting on a good idea for a business. And like, so far it's been really fruitful. I've gone from having 0 clients to having 5 or 6 consistent clients. And that's without really trying to do anything to acquire them. That's without any like outbound marketing or cold calling or anything. It's just been through network and established relationships and across the street neighbors and stuff like that. But I'm seeing some promise here, and I just know that if I were to leave this business up to myself and like not include anyone who is a little bit more systems oriented, I'm going to do this really inefficiently and probably leave a lot of money on the table for us as a business. And also for like just how well we're able to perform and show up for the people that are hiring us. And so, yeah, basically we've been just trying to figure out like, it started with Bailey sort of being like, what are like the menial, boring tasks that you don't really have time to do anymore now that you have like 6 clients that I can start picking up for you, so I have something to do with my time. And in the meantime, let's figure out what this is and really be able to clearly name what our value proposition is, what our business model is, who our ideal client is. And so those have been a lot of the conversations we've been having. And it's been good, but it's, yeah, like Bailey said, it's a vulnerable thing, financially, especially with like this looming extreme life change that Bailey's about to go through with having a kid. And also just this dream that he has of like leaving the corporate world, which, was a dream that I had for a long time too. And now, I've figured out how to make that leap as a solopreneur, if you can use that word, like a solo entrepreneur. And so far it's been like somewhat smooth sailing. And so, figuring out how to expand that to other people is like kind of my journey, but, it's also sort of Bailey's stage of life of figuring out, how do I start to make money independently, or at least without needing to be, go on LinkedIn and apply for some job that has 1,000 other applicants and
Yeah, just
go through
follow
that
the rabbit
grind that
hole of
everyone
one
else is
more
in, you know?
recruiter. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, all that to say, Bailey made a ton of sense, even though on paper you're like, how did you get like a space engineer to come and help you with
Yeah.
marketing stuff? The fact of the matter is, I remember talking with Bailey one time. We were in the car, and I was like, we had this thing we were thinking about where we were like, what jobs do you think you can look at and like without any back experience or school, figure out how to do them within like 3 weeks of working there? Like if you just commit
Yeah.
yourself to like learning the system, learning the ideas, learning the button pressing that you're actually doing. And Bailey's just one of those people that I know. It's like he could probably go to some like completely irrelevant job market that he's never been in. And just with the sincerity and like the dedication that you like sort of bring to learning things, I guarantee you could pick it up within a month of being somewhere with no experience. And I think that's how a lot of jobs are for a lot of people. Which is why I always encourage people, like if they don't like the job that they're in, just like find a connection who has a job open in a place that you are interested in, even if you have no experience. Because at the end of the day, like for any job that you get hired for, most of the like necessary prep that you need is not in like a school or previous experience. It's literally just in like the onboarding and learning how to use the systems that you'll be using there. So
Right. Yeah, no, those are very kind words. Thank you, John. And it's been a lot of fun to jump in and learn how you do things. And like how do you like what portions of what you do at Eyelights are creative? What portions seem to be like this is just something that like takes 5 hours a week that I have to do. And it's because I edit with this system or whatever. And so that's been fun, and also to like even just have my ears and eyes open to like creative processes and things like I've just I listen to podcasts a lot while I'm at work, and I've been hearing more of like, oh, I do this in the morning, or this is kind of something I do to like create a space for creativity, or I try to do less, less things, more like fewer things better. And kind of some of those ideas have been, it's just funny that like when you're in a corporate job, like quality is not your concern. Like you don't really interface with the customer. You don't really have to worry about like the company image or anything like that. You kind of just have to, keep your boss happy and like pursue the balance that you want at that job. And there's a lot of great jobs out there like that. But I think it's been more fun to have such a direct link to quality, creativity. How does that show up? How does that get handed to somebody? They say, hey, could you come on and help us? And you deliver some clips, in this case, social media clips or long form videos, or help with a podcast. And the customer gets to go, wow, this is great value, and you're really helping us, and you're getting the gears turning in this direction, and you're partnering with us. And it just feels really fun to be so close to that. And I don't even really know how I ended up down this route, but yeah, I think it was learning, like both of us are, you've learned how to do something really well and you've brought clients, but now it's time to learn how do you involve one more person, and how do I like bounce ideas off of you, and how do we do that well, and how do we figure out systems like paying each other, and from the business, and what does it look like to like do, like I said, fewer better, like increase pay, like, or what we can charge to a client, and decrease the number of clients so that we can really do something awesome. And like
right.
those few clients who have hired us are like, man, like we hope that they don't like, or we hope we can continue to work with them because they're just like awesome, and we wish we could just bring them in and hire them.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. That was a bit of a rant on that idea of
yeah. No,
quality and learning,
it's
but
good.
Yeah.
I also realize, I think before we get too far into this, it would probably be a good idea to like really lay out like what exactly we're doing and how we got into this in the first place.
Fair enough.
So Bailey, if you can go, why don't you share like sort of high level what we're doing, what our business model is, where money is coming from, why people are paying us, and I'll sort of fill in the gaps as we go. But I think just for people listening, that would be a good base to start on.
That's a fun exercise because I am newer to it. But I would say if you go on John's Instagram bio, I'm pretty sure that it says something along the lines of helping people live or tell better stories. And I think that is, in a nutshell, what Eyelights does. you have somebody who has a product or a message, or a group of people that they want to communicate to, and they're really sold on this idea. They're really gifted at speaking about it. Um, they're really gifted at creating resources around it, a community, a set of digital products, whatever it is. And they just need some help messaging that, what they're offering and why. I think they've got the why figured out, but like, yeah, how do we communicate what they're offering and get it in front of people regularly and grow specifically social media accounts? So people who maybe are scrolling and they're just seeing something funny, seeing something whatever, and all of a sudden there's an encouraging message about spiritual health, or hey, like, are you wanting to go freelance? Like, we can help you do that, or whatever the message is. We help them, if they don't have the time to edit video and manage that account and really make sure the messaging is clear and consistent, then they come along and they hire us. And so we help them tell that story. We help them get that in front of people, and they pay us because, yeah, their time is better spent doing what they're really passionate about. And what we're really passionate about is like helping just amplify what certain people are doing. I think there's probably a lot of clients out there that if they came to us, we'd go like, interesting, yes, maybe, it'd be great to get paid to help you out, but we don't really believe in what your message is. That's probably someone we would say no to. But I think everybody that we work with, we're really stoked about what they're doing. We want to help them tell that story. And yeah, I think that answers the question of like, what do we do? What's the idea? Why do people pay us to do it? I think that's my 30,000 foot view.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I feel like we've sort of found our niche in these sort of like personal brand type people. Because essentially the person that works really well with us is someone who already has a pretty solid body of content that they're producing, whether that is a book or they're speaking at events or speaking at churches or they have a podcast. But they're struggling to really reach a larger audience and don't really know the ins and outs of like how to do that on social media. Because the reality is like social media in a lot of ways is like the cornerstone of marketing in the modern era. It's like you can do emails and there's a place for that, and email marketing is super important. And running ads on TV and all kinds of stuff like that, there's a place for it. But really, like, to me, if you want like the quickest route to growing an audience that cares about what you do, cares about what your product is, can give you feedback, can be sold products or services that you're creating, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook are the places to be. Like you really have to be on those platforms if you want to grow your sales ultimately, because growing an audience is part of that. But then like people who really thrive doing stuff on social media have really solid like funnels that convert people from a view to a follower to an engager on a post to someone who is paying for whatever you're providing. And so we kind of had like, or at least I had like a lucky start with having a mom who like really represents a lot of what that ideal is for us. She's, written several books. She speaks at churches and conferences all over the world. She is really well spoken, and yet like, was relatively undiscovered on social media. And I looked at her and just looked at all this huge body of work that she's created. And I'm like, I think I can figure out how to get 1,000 times, 100,000 times more views on and more engagement around this stuff just by like putting it in the right format and publishing it on the right platforms in the right ways. I think I can like grow your audience pretty substantially. And that was sort of this bet that I took 9 or 10 months ago. And pretty much immediately her accounts started growing, and this brand that she's created called Soul Care started getting attention and started getting was just getting traction on there. And ever since then, it's been pretty much up and to the right for them. We've gotten at least one video to go like properly viral for them that has like almost 500,000 views and has just blown up their web traffic and stuff like that. But essentially it's like there's a million reasons why having a successful and engaging social media platform is useful for someone who's trying to grow a personal brand or trying to grow a company in general. But yeah, we found, and like what we found is there's this type of person that we partner with that kind of has some good ideas, that likes sharing what they think that can help people, but doesn't necessarily know how to get in touch with the people that they want to help. We've sort of found repeatable ways to do that are not going to burn anyone out and that we can handle fairly autonomously without them doing too much. That can grow and really help whatever they're trying to do. So anyway, that's sort of what we do. Essentially, like to break it down further, it's like it started for us with like an hourly rate that I was just charging people of like, hey, if you want me to be on your team, it's going to be between 5 and 10 hours a week. And I'm just going to charge $75 an hour because that's what I need to make to sustain my life and what I feel like I'm worth. And I don't necessarily need to justify that number to people, but I really think that if you invest this money, 10 hours a week, $3,000 a month, that's going to be well worth it and beyond for the growth in your audience that you're going to experience through it. And so far, we haven't had a single customer come to us and be like, hey, you're kind of ripping us off. Like this isn't working. To be honest, there are some accounts that aren't growing like at a staggering rate. They're all kind of in their own place. And we are really trying in a lot of ways to fine tune and figure out what's working. And there is sort of an experimentation process of like figuring out what is the algorithm like, what is the exact audience that you're trying to speak to? How do we speak to them well? And so it's not like every single one of our clients is like instantly viral. But the reality is with social media, like a lot of times, like for me, my experience was I just had to be consistent on it for about, how long was it? 3 months. And then after 3 months, I had a real good 60 million views. And all of a sudden I have 20,000 followers. And it's like everything changed for my personal account. And that's how it is for a lot of accounts. It's like consistency and just showing up and trying different things is really the work that you need to do. Because it's not a guarantee that you like exactly what you're trying to say is going to resonate with exactly the audience that you're looking for instantly. But to me, it's like when you hire Eyelights, when you hire us, having 2 people that are looking consistently at these things and paying attention for you, doing it like without you really needing to do much more than provide source content and like do a podcast if that's what's helpful. It's kind of a no-brainer. So yeah, I kind of started realizing like, hey, I kind of see this ecosystem of tools that I can use that'll make this relatively repeatable and not exhausting for me, and also create really high quality content that is consistent that I can grow an audience with for other people. And so that's where I started looking at it, and I was like, okay, I think there's like a business to put together here that's repeatable and potentially scalable. Bailey and I essentially have it at a place now where we have we have between 4 and 5 clients that are like kind of locked in pretty consistent. And so we're doing between like, it's like somewhere around like 12,000 a month is kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
And so we really think like with making this more efficient, we'll be able to take on, at least we can probably at least double the amount of people that we're working with and probably get to 20,000 in recurring revenue. That's like sort of the more like, within the next 3 to 6 months sort of goal. But ultimately, like I think once we figure out like how to systematize this and productize it so that it's purchasable in, just systematized, like it can be automatic. We can automate as much of it as possible. It's not uncommon for marketing agencies like this to get to $100,000, $200,000 a month. So not saying we're necessarily the guys for that, but both Bailey and I really believe in this, in sort of the business model that we have, and also just who we are as people interacting with clients. There's a lot of people that are kind of dirtbags out there that are not providing a great service for people and ripping people off. Like I've talked to so many people, especially that are sort of larger business owners themselves, that have hired like a marketing agency that's just kind of tanked for them and hasn't delivered on anything. And just knowing who me and Bailey are, it's like, no, like we're digging our heels in and we're like committing to every single client that we take on. So yeah, I don't know, maybe it's like unwarranted self-belief, but I really believe that there's potential for this business model and for the 2 of us in general. So anyway, that was a long rant, but just to provide as much clarity as I could as to like what we're doing, that's sort of my goal there. Bailey, let me know if you have any comments on it.
I don't know, maybe two comments to just kind of like bolster what you said, but I think that there's this idea that yeah, there's someone that these people want to reach, you know, that your mom wants to reach, that you know any of our other clients want to reach. Um, there's a lot of ways you can do that, and social media is a good one because you know, if you're consistent, eventually someone going to follow this account. They're going to believe in the product or whatever's being the messages, and it's something they need to hear, or that it's an encouragement that they need, or it's helping them take a step, or giving them resources, and they're probably going to take that step, and that's a sale. That's great for the client that we support. But it also grows that community of people that, you know, we're, like I said, we're not going to work with clients that we don't believe in what they're doing. Like, you know, you'd have to, and there's a lot of good things to believe in. And so there's probably a lot of great clients out there, but those communities grow, and then there's a growing of following. Hey, did you hear about this person, you know, and there's sort of probably a word of mouth that happens on the other side of social media. And so I think that that's really cool too, is if you're consistent in that space, social media is a really great place to reach anyone in the world who wants to hear that, needs to hear that. And you don't know how badly they need to hear it or want that product or whatever, how badly they believe in it. You may catch the person that probably through no other method you were going to be able to catch, who just loves what you're doing and wants to share it with people. And then you know, you've just multiplied your ability to, you have somebody who's doing free marketing for you out there. So I think that that's a really cool part of social media that I was just kind of thinking about while you're talking. And the other side is like, yeah, we don't know what we're going to scale to, or, you know, do we want to be the 100,000 a month? Like, I don't know, but what we do know is we want to do a good job, like you said. And, you know, if social media is not the right thing, the right method or the right thing for this client that maybe we've taken on, and this is a theoretical client, this is not a client we currently have, but, that's great. They'll end that, you know, relationship with us if it's not working, and they can move on. Like, we want to find people who you know, these platforms work really well for, and continue to help them grow for a long time. We're not trying to go like viral overnight, like you said. It's about like committing to the decade of what you're doing, and growing towards something that you can look back and go like, oh my gosh, we're so glad we really spread this message. It really got out there, and it almost got out of hand, like to where like our community was taking it and running with it, and like it's beyond even what our clients imagined. And so that's kind of like, that's a vision that I want to paint of like, how do we help our clients have a long-term vision? Even though social media is often perceived as like a short-term platform where it's like something goes viral and then it's gone, and it's like, hopefully you capitalize on that moment. It's like, no, ideally you're being really consistent. You're active in the community that you're trying to reach, and the audience that you're trying to reach. And there's a natural, really healthy, natural growth to that. That's going to come, that we're not really just trying to find like these viral things. If it goes viral, great. That's something we can harvest and value, but
and in some sense, there's something that I think people miss when they have smaller followings on social media, is there's actually like value in having a more concentrated follower base or a smaller follower base. Whereas like for me, it's like I had a couple of videos go super viral. I have a ton of followers now. But all those followers and all those views don't necessarily convert to like engagement all the time. And so, you know, there are some accounts that have 200 followers that have like a much, much higher engagement rate, and because of that are actually more valuable than an account that kind of grew because of random like silly videos that have nothing to do with like what the company or person is actually trying to do, that you know, are almost useless even though they have 50,000 followers, 100,000 followers. So yeah, like it's really important to know like who's our audience, what is our message, if we're going to grow from anything, what do we want to grow from, and what do we not care about growing from? Super important. And the other thing that I thought of too, Bailey, with you sharing that is like, I think I heard Alex Hormozy say this somewhere on YouTube, but he's like, when you don't have a huge following on social media and you're putting out a ton of content, think of it as like nurture mechanism rather than like a sales mechanism at first. When you have a large following, you can convert that using content, like by promoting whatever product or service you're trying to offer. But if you think about like, if you have a small account and you're trying to do something. Maybe you host retreats for people, and they're able to go to your account and see all kinds of content that you've created about what it's like to be at one of your retreats and what people experience there. But like, say that account has 200 followers and like none of your content has a ton of views. You might have a few people that discover that account and then have like an hour of being able to like learn about you and trust you and understand what they're going to get from you. And it's like all of that contributes to like nurturing a lead. And it may not immediately be just from like, it may not immediately serve the purpose of just skyrocketing your audience and growing a ton. It might just be something that like you want to have as a resource for people whenever they want to be able to binge your business or your service. If that makes sense. So to me, it's like, yeah, whether or not stuff that we're creating is like going viral and getting this audience to like skyrocket immediately, there's value in a business or a person just having a page where someone can like Netflix binge you to really learn what you're about, to understand what your message is, and to learn how to like dive deeper with you.
Yeah, I think that's sick. Just thinking about like you're creating a library of, in our case, like shorter form clips where someone can just get little nuggets of like, oh, this, like, I don't follow this person. Nobody recommended it to me. It just showed up on my feed. So I can click on it. What is it about? And you can kind of get a sense of like who that person is or what that client wants to communicate based on this library of content that has been set up. And over time, like that content's going to get better. It's going to like, you know, as we get better at what we're doing, like clips that are on there are going to be more concentrated on what the client wants to communicate. More experts are maybe going to be showing up podcasting or whatever. Just the value as you commit to something over a long period of time, the value that you can deliver goes up. And so, yeah, I think that there's also just a commitment to like getting better at what we're doing and doing that sort of cooperatively with the client of like, hey, how do we both figure out what you're specifically trying to do and communicate it better? Because we have some base method of that communication and that ability to generate leads, sales, whatever, post those clips. But there's something specific to that client that we want to learn and understand better as we work with them more. And I think that's a cool aspect is we get to learn a ton just from working with these people and what they're passionate about.
Totally.
So
yeah, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, like I just have a ton of fun with it. Like sitting down with someone who is brilliant in their own way and has either created something amazing or is trying to teach something amazing, but like hasn't had the opportunity to really get reps in on like putting things out there publicly on the internet about what they're trying to do. It's really energizing because you really get to dig into what that person is passionate about. You really get to help them understand the value, like you were talking about, of like just showing up, stepping up to the plate every day and just publishing something, even if it's not like your grand opus masterpiece. Yeah. Being able to just consistently document your life, talk about what you care about, and be public about it. It's just fun because, you know, like one of the routes that we have found to be like really helpful and a really consistent source of like clippable content is video podcasts. And that's a lot of like what I coach people through starting is like, how do you start a video podcast? It's fairly simple. It's fairly like you don't have to pay a ton. You don't need super expensive mics. You don't need expensive cameras. Like if you have a phone or a computer, you can start a video podcast. But immediately once you start a video podcast, it's like you get to be the cool kid in high school that was like going around and inviting people to the party at your house. And when you get it to, you know, when you get to invite people to the party at your house and you're the one hosting the party, you don't have to be the hottest, the most athletic, the most likable person. You like immediately become like one of the most like cornerstone people in your community because you're the one hosting the event. And to me, like there's power in hosting the thing that's talking about whatever your niche is obsessed with or learning about or focused on. Yeah. And so like, I think it's empowering for people who care about something to look at themselves and be like, I could be the one to host this. Because then it's like, once you host it, then you have, you know, let's say you do one podcast episode and you record for an hour and a half. Within that hour and a half, you have probably between 6 and 15. I'm just making up numbers here, but like you have a solid amount of clips that you can then pull from it. And you might have, you know, you might publish your first podcast episode and have 3 people listen to it, but you can post 20 clips from that episode on Instagram, and very easily, like even if you have no followers, you can very easily get 3,000 views across all of those. And if you have some followers, it's not uncommon that you could get 100,000 views across 20 clips. And like 100,000 views, like in all likelihood, those are 100,000 random people from the internet that have never heard of you.
Yeah.
And like they're getting exposed to who
And
you
now they
are,
have.
what your ideas are, what
Yeah.
you care about. So that's why, like, for me, being able to like sit down with someone and be like, okay, what are the repeatable, consistent things that you can do to talk about the things that you care about and the things that your business care about? And then how can we get that content to go as far as it possibly can? Like one fun story from like just sort of this strategy is like my mom teaches at churches all the time, right? So she went and taught at a church that maybe had, I want to say 1,000 people, like it was mid-sized church, had 1,000 people sitting in the room listening to her teach. That's awesome. 1,000 people in person. Fortunately, this church was recording it and they published her teaching to YouTube. On YouTube, another 600 people saw that whole teaching and were impacted by it, which is like, that's amazing. You almost just doubled the amount of people that are seeing it. Well, then what I can do is I reach out to this church and I'm like, hey, can I have this footage? I promise, I'll give you credit and tag you and do this in collaboration with you, whatever. And can I take clips from it and post it? So I clipped it up. I posted it once, like probably 8 or 9 months ago. It got 3,000 or 4,000 views, like pretty good for a pretty small account at the time. It got a ton of engagement. I think it had like 30 or 40 shares. It had all these comments, and it performed pretty well. Another probably 7 or 8 months go by, we're coming up on like about a month ago. I was like, okay, I remember that post did pretty well. I'm just going to dig up that exact same clip, put a slightly different caption on it, post the exact same clip to this social media platform again. And for whatever reason, the algorithm just went buck wild with it and it got 500,000 views. And so you take like
That's
one
crazy.
thing that happened in person that had maybe 1,000 views to now 500,000 people know about what my mom is doing, who she is, what she cares about. And now that converts to a couple thousand followers on her Instagram account from a video that was just sitting dusty on the web, on like the internet,
Yeah.
So a lot of what I say, like with what I do is like, I'm kind of like a content recycler. Like I will help you generate new content, but like I find it's especially helpful to think through what is the stuff that's already been made, the low-hanging fruit that we can just go repurpose and package, put it in the right place and have like a way bigger impact than what it's currently having. So anyway, I get stoked about like sitting down with someone and being like, hey, are you aware that like the work that you've already done can go like way, way, way further than it is if you just like know what to
Put
do
a little
with
work
it.
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And dude, you get me pretty hyped going through all those numbers there. Dude,
Yeah.
you were just like find X, multiply.
Well, I just think that's
But
a
no.
perfect story. It's like, this is exactly, I think, what we're good at is like finding these gold nuggets and then putting them in the right place at the right time and boom.
Well, and I think that's what's sick is it's like, listen, if you're somebody who has those skills and the time and the message, great. Go out and listen to this podcast. Hear that this is
Do exactly
a
what
method
we're
that
doing.
you do exactly what we're doing. If you're somebody who's like, hey, like I don't want to do that, and or I don't have the time to do that, but I have all this content or whatever, it's like great. That's an area that we can deliver value of. Like you already have something set up or some backlog of content that we can use and deliver you like a consistent messaging over time. And even if you preach something, let's say like your mom a year ago, that's still part of your message. That's still something we can use. That's still something we can resurface and offer back to people of, hey, like, you go back and you read a book a second time because there's just some really good nuggets in it and you want to be reminded of it. There's no reason you can't reuse a post like that or reuse previous podcasts. And so it may like, I think there's a part of me when we first started that was like, really? We're just like taking stuff people have already done. Like, isn't it like they really want to pay you to do that? Yes, of course they do, because the message is still there, still super valuable. There's like a ton of value in like something that's said really well one time in a short form. Can we go find those, unearth them, and consistently post stuff that's like along that thread? And that's something that we can get really good at. Someone else doesn't have to worry about it. And so I think that's what's fun is just like realizing that, yeah, maybe you could do this on your own. And I think like you said, like it's not rocket science, but at the same time, it's a service. We're happy to like do this for people. And it really is just like a method. It's,
Mhm.
this is how we can get your message in front of people consistently and amplify like whatever you're trying to do, whatever community you're
Mhm.
trying to build, whatever product that you're really excited that you've built that you want to get in front of people. So I think that's pretty sick. I'm pretty hyped on all the numbers that you
Yeah. Well, I
numbers
just
tell a
get
good
hyped on
story.
that anecdotally because it's just
Yeah.
like, to me, that there's so much value in having people that like know how to look for stuff like that, know how to put it in the right place at the right time. And I also think it's encouraging to people who have been creating content but like haven't really seen a huge return of on investment in that yet, is like it's possible that you just haven't believed in it enough to keep resurfacing it in the right ways, you know?
Yeah.
Hey Gabs. My wife, everybody. Um yeah, I just think there's an idea that Gary Vaynerchuk kind of harps on all the time, that when you're trying to produce a ton of content, it's more important to document than it is to create. And I think that is really core to like the philosophy of what we do, is like you don't have to like go out and do a bunch of new flashy things. You don't need to try all the new trends that people are doing. Like you don't need to reinvent yourself. It's just more important to like understand truly like what is the message you have been sharing that is important to you.
Mhm.
Find places that you've put that and then really consistently harp back on it. Um and yeah, I think for some people like who don't have a ton of like a huge backlog of stuff that they can pull from, the first step that I encourage so many people to do, even if you're not going to hire me, is just, like I said, just start a video podcast,
Hit
because all of a
record.
sudden
Yeah.
you can have conversations about what you really want to talk about, and then you have literally infinite fodder to clip into things that you can post on social media. Instagram likes 90 seconds or less. That's how you create a reel. YouTube likes 60 seconds or less. That's how you create a YouTube short. TikTok, I don't think the time matters as much, although I know that you'll probably get more engagement if you go like close to 60 seconds. But yeah, it's just like, to me, there's such a no-brainer in this, that even if like you run a business and you're like trying to figure out how to be consistent on social media when you feel like you have to keep reinventing yourself and like making up all these skits
Mhm.
all the time, it's like, no, just get one really solid version of you talking about the things you really care about, and then start clipping it up. There's tools like Descript that use AI to transcribe all of the things that you said, and there's like a free version of it even. So you can transcribe everything, and you can like edit the video using a text-based editor, meaning if you can edit a Word document, you can edit a video. It's like that simple. Throw
Yeah.
captions on it, post it. All of a sudden you have like an ability to post every single day of the week, when that may have felt like way out of reach for you a while ago. It's like it's
Yeah.
really easy as long as you have a strategy and a system in place that makes it repeatable and not exhausting, because that's, I think a lot of people run into that with social media, is they just get burnt out on like the never ending slog of needing to
Yeah.
like start from scratch every week, you
Oh my
know?
God. Yeah. No, and I think that's I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but I think what I was like honing in on is like that's a system, like you said, and that's something that like it's really simple. It's pretty easy to learn. Like if someone listens to this podcast and goes and tries it, great, and they don't need us. But like it's something that I picked up in like a week, basically.
Right.
Like I'm
Exactly.
getting better at it, but like yeah, this is something that anybody can do. I like have no background in video editing, and it truly is like you can highlight something in this Descript application, whatever you want to call it, and just say, I think that maybe, well, and you just kind of you can highlight that. It'll do it often automatically for you. It'll say, hey, we think this is probably something you want to delete. But if there's something else like a sentence that's just not relevant, you can just highlight it and delete it, and it'll edit right out. And it's just, I don't know, it's cool how like seeing how this whole like AI revolution that we're seeing take place is it's coming to every single aspect of life. Like you want to
Yeah.
figure out how to do accounting for our business, which is something that we're like trying to figure out. And it's like, okay, what if we make this much, how much do we actually like see after taxes, all that stuff? Like great, you can use ChatGPT for that. If you
Yeah.
want to try to figure out how to create a short, like, which is something you've never done before, great. In 4 hours, if you download, if you know which app to use, and you kind of hinted me in on it, but like within 4 hours, I'd created like 8 clips, totally gone through a whole like hour-long podcast and found stuff that we could use. And so it's really, it's fun to see like this is just one aspect of this like side of business where it's like we don't really know exactly what we're doing. We're figuring a couple things out. You've found some great tools. There's a lot of other things that we're not going to know how to do and we're going to run into walls on, but it's encouraging to know that there are so many of these tools out there that can help you take something that's really complicated. Used to probably take 10, 20, 30 hours in a week to do what we're doing now in 3 hours. You know?
It's totally, it's pretty cool. This business is not at all possible without AI. And like for real, like this is almost like AI is the foundation of what we do, which is crazy because it's like, I wouldn't consider myself an AI expert, so to speak.
Right.
But it's like, I've just been in the video editing world for forever. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, this thing that would have taken me literal ages to make, I can do in seconds. And, you know, I think there's a lot of people out there that, especially who are like video editors that are passionate about it. They're like, shit, I'm out of a job. But for me, I'm like, oh, sick, a business. Like, I think I just found a way to like, I think I found a way to go way further for the people that hire me than I did before. And so it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a sick opportunity, and there's a lot of cool applications that like we probably haven't. I'm sure there's a ton of like AI tools out there that could probably help us with our systems and with making things even tighter that we haven't even discovered yet. And so I think it's a really fun time to be in business and to start a business because it's like there's such a tailwind now. There's so many tools that can help you ideate. Even if you're in like even if you're like a farmer. Even if you're like, how do I make more money at the farmer's market every week? It's like you have an AI tool that you can literally like talk to. That's basically like farmer God that you can just like figure out how to optimize with. It's like,
here's what 10 million.
Yeah, it's affected every industry like crazy. And,
no, and I think it's fun to kind of get back to the point of kind of like why we're here, why we're recording right now. You know, this is a recording of, you know, in the first of many of us stumbling through how to start a business together. I mean, you've gone so far, John, on your own, like, and figured out so much, and it's really impressive, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. But like, it's just fun to know that like, even though we don't know a lot of what we're doing, like let's say you get this video editing part figured out, which we've done, I'd say that's great. But now we need to think about like, okay, what does it look like to like, instead of haphazardly getting new clients through our existing network, which is a great way to do it to start, like, how do you reach outside of your network? How do you find what other, if we wanted to add new clients, how do we do that? How do we like, you know, if we're in a certain income bracket, like, what do we, as a company, like, how does it look like to pay, you know, each other at this stage? What does it look like if we triple that, you know? How do we need a lawyer? Do we need an accountant? All these things that we like have not figured out. We have like hardly have anything in writing. It's encouraging to know that like, despite all the fear that might mount of like, I'm going to do this wrong. I'm going to like, totally mess it up. We're going to like, somebody's like, we'll get to a point where we didn't think it through. And so, you know, we just didn't come through for a client or whatever. There's all these tools that are coming out that are going to help us like kind of get there a little bit less painfully or, you know, a little bit more efficiently or whatever. It's exciting to know like how many tools there are out there to help. And, you know, if we ever are like, man, what do we do in this? We should probably start Googling, like we're asking around because there's probably a tool for it. And so I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. No, there's a lot more to understand. Part of what's been like really, really helpful for Bailey and I is there's a guy named John, who's the dad of one of our best friends, who's like a super experienced business guy, has owned a ton of different businesses, not necessarily in the marketing space, but he's just been on all these amazing ventures and has just really succeeded at pretty much everything he's put his hand to. Also, like a savage ultra marathon runner. He's like the fittest dude in the entire world, over 60. I almost guarantee it. He like David Goggins has nightmares about this guy, and he has he's just been sort of a coach and a mentor figure through all of this for Bailey and I. which is awesome because he knows Bailey and I fairly well. Bailey and I actually got to go like sailing with him a few months ago. Like the dude's
Best
amazing.
trip of my life.
Seriously, like best trip of my life by far.
Yeah.
But having someone like that who's kind of been through a lot of the pitfalls that are ahead of us has been an insanely valuable resource. And he's been really helpful to sort of point out some of the holes that we may have not considered. And like for me, it's like I have like so little concept of like the legal world, and he's like so what do your contracts look like with all of your clients? And I'm like, I don't know, like I think I have some that I maybe filed like way long ago, but like I have no idea where I'm at. I definitely haven't sent some of my clients contracts. I don't even really know how to put one together. He's like, okay, well, you need to figure out contracts, you need to figure out your finances. Like you should probably have an accountant, like you should probably pay attention to like your scoreboard so you know if you're like hitting better or worse. He's just like providing a lot of that amazing insight. And but I think in general, he's been someone helpful for me to ask the question, like, what are the holes in what we're doing right now? Because a lot of the time I'm only focusing on like, what are we doing? What's great? What's working? And having a mentor figure who can be like, that's great and amazing, and I believe in what you're doing. Also, you're missing a lot of the equation is amazing. Like, I think another place that I think is going to be hopefully a space of growth for both of us, and something I want to learn more about, is like having detailed analytics of what we're doing, not just being like, oh, a reel went viral, like we must be doing amazing. But being able to really track, like having systems to know from, this amount of people that saw your engagement or your content, how many people actually followed you, and from the people that are following you, how many people are actually purchasing something from you.
Right.
Because you can broadly see movement and things happening, and like all of the people that I've been working with have for sure seen like a surge in people engaging with their brand and buying things and purchasing, especially soul care, like people really going for it. And they've seen a lot of action, but I can't point to like, here's the percentage you've grown by because of me. And so I think we need to get better at that. There's a gap there. I think understanding like the marketing ecosystem in general is going to be important for us. And that's why I'm in like big time, both of us are in like big time learn mode, trying to get as many podcasts in and stuff as we can. Cause like we're great on organic content, which means like not paid ads. We're making tons of organic stuff, but there's this whole world of paid advertising on social media that I have never learned about, that I don't know about, that I know is part of the ecosystem. I'm a firm believer in organic just because I've seen it be so powerful for myself and for other clients. But that being said, I think for us to have enough knowledge about paid to know like why we're not stepping into it if we're not yet. And also like if a client is interested in it, are we the person that they should go to for it? Is there another person we could point them to? Also email marketing, also web development. It's like this gigantic ecosystem that we're a part of. And I think I'm just starting to realize we really need to become as much as we can experts in the whole ecosystem so that we can tell someone when they're asking us like what part of the ecosystem we can confidently like know exactly what to tell them.
Yeah, and point them in the right direction if we're like, hey, you probably would do better in this space. But yeah, I'm pretty stoked on your like. I think that everyone we work with is a good candidate for organic like advertising. It's like Tesla where they don't have any marketing; they just have a product that's compelling, and that's all the marketing you need. But like, there's organic marketing for us, and then there's also like, hey, here's how we can effectively communicate that we're delivering value to you in a way that's like, so the analytics side I think would be really cool as well. I don't know, we're throwing out a lot of ideas. I love it. Wondering if you want to try and land the plane here. If there's anything else you kind of wanted to hit before we wrap up, but I'm super stoked about kind of all the breadth we've covered, and I think we've given whoever's listening a good idea of like where we're at, of like, oh wow, they haven't figured that out, or they don't know how to do that, and then also like, oh wow, look how much they do know about this area, and I can take from that. I think it's a fun balance to present of like, yeah, this is the reality. Like we don't have a lot of this stuff figured out, and we have a couple of these things figured out. So I don't know. I think we hit it pretty well, which is fun.
I guess I would just address two audiences before we finish up. If you're someone who is trying to grow a personal brand that like fits really well into the category of what we described, I would love to just hop on a call with you and hear what you're doing, and see if there's a fit for what we're doing and if we could possibly help you grow. So that's one thing. Just we're available for hire if you're interested. The other thing is if you are someone who wants to get into freelancing, wants to leave the corporate world, but doesn't feel confident that they can make money on their own. I just want to share, like, I hope it's clear through this whole video that like we don't know everything. We know way less than we would like to. Both of us do. And yet we have a business. We're able to make money. We're able to do stuff. And a lot of that, I think, is just because we found something that is showing a lot of promise and has worked for people. And it's like we found a way to keep going. But I just want to encourage anyone who's listening that like is thinking about doing freelancing or starting a business. It's like you have to build the plane as you go. You never start with a fully built product. You never start with a fully built out client base. You just have to go. And we're in that phase of like, we're just going, and it shows a lot of promise. But at the same time, we don't know everything, and we're going to need to grow, and we're going to need to adapt as we go. So I I wish I had, like 6 months ago, I wish I had more visibility into other people that are doing scary shit like this and just knew what their experience was like, what, could ask them questions, knew who they were. Because like Bailey said at the beginning, everyone that you see that's built a business is like, here's how I built my $10 million a month business and how it's amazing and I've done everything right. And it's like, we've done a lot of things right, but we're by no means like this insane success case. But there is something like sustainable, and I've been able to live off of solely this income for 9 months in an expensive place to live. And I'm starting to be able to pay someone to join me alongside. And hopefully this is ultimately something that is sustainable for both Bailey and I. But just know, like, we're humans trying to figure this out. If you're a human, you can start a business, you can figure it out. It might be messy. It's been messy for us. But it's so worth it to know how to make money on your own independently without needing someone to, hire you to do it. You can figure out how to provide products and services to people, and it's going to be a mess, but you'll figure it out. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. It'll be way more fun and engaging. And yeah. And I guess short plug for Indie. If you need a community and you're making that leap, at Indie.win on Instagram, hit him up.
Yeah.
So,
Indie is a cool community I've been really blessed to be a part of and do some social media work for as well. So we can leave a link to them in the comments or in the description. But yeah, thanks for watching. This has been long. If you've made it all the way through, well done. Glad you're still here. Yeah. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. It's been fun talking with you, Bailey.
Always fun hanging out with you, John. And thanks for anybody out there. Thanks for listening. It's fun to just hang out, and we hope we can offer you something valuable. Hope you have a great day.
Amen. Peace out.